Hello and welcome to the All In series. We're here to share the stories of people who have gone all in and pursued their dream of owning their own business. My name is Layla Gulen, and we're happy to be joined by Dan Olson, the proud new owner of the franchise Candy Cloud, a specialty beverage shop that serves everything from coffee to lemonades to shakes to small bites and more. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Oh, I can't
Appreciate
wait to hear what Candy Cloud is all about. It sounds delicious. But before we dive into your franchise endeavors, let's get to know you a bit. Tell us something about your professional background.
I've been in the natural foods business for 20 years, pretty much. Mostly selling kind of brands that you probably recognize: Chobani Greek yogurt, Noosa yogurt, Rayo's pasta sauce, Enjoy Life Foods, and I've always been, I'm a sales executive in natural foods, and it's a great business. I love it. I love it. Um, but I've been doing it for 20 years. And so at this point, it's something that I was looking to make a change or to do something a little bit different with the second half of my career, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you transitioned or segued into something that was already within your wheelhouse. I know a lot of franchise owners, people just want to kind of get rid of their past and want to try something completely new and different. So, did you choose Candy Cloud specifically because of your background?
Yes, for sure. I've always loved the food business. I don't know much about the restaurant business, but I do know a lot about the food business, and so I understand retail and I understand food. And when I was looking for a franchise to purchase, food was really at the top of my list. I mean, it's my passion. It's something that I've always understood, and I wanted to do something in that space, but different.
Yeah. When did you start to consider owning your own business? I mean, I think we understand why, because you've been doing what you're doing for the last 2 decades. So when do you think you were starting to get that itch?
It's a great question. It was about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, and I'll tell the story if you don't mind.
Please.
Um,
I
uh, you know,
indulge us.
uh, I, I was, I was working. I was pretty burnt out. My company was struggling. It wasn't my company, but the company I was working for was struggling. I was very stressed. I was, losing sleep a lot, and I just felt this total like kind of exhaustion from the way I was going. And I have a great friend of mine who is one of my closest friends. He is a franchise owner, and he lives in New York, and he's he always seems to be having like the best time, right? I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in Sardinia. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And we got to talking about it, and he really, loves owning his own business. He owns a swim school franchise. And so basically he rents pools. He's very successful at it. He loves his independence. He's just sort of a whole new person since he started this friend his own business journey. And so we were talking, and he's like, well, you could do that too. And I started to sort of think, and I'm like, honestly, I had a birthday that was it was my 50th birthday, and as a 50th birthday milestone, you know, I started to think like, you know what, there's kind of more behind me than there is ahead of me. And how am I going to run this string out, right? Like how do I want myself to be at the end, like I'm kind of coming to the end. And I really realized that no matter what I was going to do in my career, it was never going to be the same satisfaction as owning my own business. It was never going to give me the what I really wanted, which was my independence, which was to be financially independent and really to be my own boss. I've worked for great companies in my career, but you're always working for somebody else, and it's never going to be any different than that. As successful as I've been, there's always been a limitation. And you know, not that owning a franchise is not hard, it's just a different level of hard, right? It's hard for yourself versus hard for somebody else. So it's hard work that is a little bit more rewarding.
Well, I
So
was going to say, first of all, you don't look a shade over 35, and they're making
that's
scientific advancements. So don't say that most of it's behind you. You don't know that for sure. So,
yeah.
um, but you raise a really interesting point because as we start to wind down in life, we're looking to take on less responsibility. So when you venture out to become an entrepreneur, you would assume that that means you're taking on more responsibility.
It's a different kind of responsibility, you know. I think that it's something that it's responsibility that I'm responsible for rather than responsibility that's put on me, right? And you know, there's no illusions about how hard it's going to be and how much work it's going to be, but there's something about the end at the end of the day. This is mine. This is my legacy. This is for my kids. This is for me. This is like something that I've built on my own. And well, it's a franchise, so with some help from my franchise partners. But really, it's about, sort of forging your own destiny. And so it's a lot of hard work, but I feel like it's a lot of reward in a really different fundamental way.
I'm curious, being that there are about a million different food franchises out there, how did you home in on Candy Cloud specifically?
So Rich was incredibly helpful in this process.
Rich
He took
LeBrun,
me.
he's founder of this wonderful company, and yeah, he does tremendous work.
Oh, it was amazing. It was honestly, it was a really fantastic experience. So Phil, my friend Phil, who has the franchise, he had worked with Rich before, and Rich took, Rich and I had it set up a call for, maybe an hour or two, a long call, where he really just asked me about who I was and what I like, right, and what my passions are, and what I'm looking for, in my career and the rest of my career. And we started talking about food, and obviously I've been doing it for a while, but I really do have a passion for food. And so, you know, he took what we talked about, and he went back, and he ruminated about it for a week, and he presented me with a whole host of options for different businesses. And some of them are in the food space, and some of them were not in the food space. And we sort of talked through all the different options, and how each one would be, and how I would feel about each one, and would eliminate some and keep some, and sort of whittle it down to maybe three or four that I was choosing between. Um, and then as I got to that level, then I started having conversations with the franchises themselves, and really starting to understand what the financial impacts of it, like what kind of products they do, why there's something different, why there's something special. And through that process of sort of elimination, I landed on Candy Club.
Very interesting. Tell us more about Candy Cloud. I understand that it was sort of born of something that was quite sad for the family that founded the company, but something wonderful certainly has come of it. So maybe you could dive in a little bit more and tell us
Yeah, it's
what
a
it is that you
really
sell.
what's that?
Tell us what you sell.
Oh
It's an
yeah,
interesting
well,
product.
it's a really great franchise. I'm very excited about it. So they originally sold. Originally was they were selling flowers and plants. Sort of a flower a cart, I believe. In order to sort of honor the memory of the franchise founder's daughter, who passed away when she was a little kid. And for me, that was a very powerful story. He turned that into a candy,
Cotton
uh,
candy.
cotton candy. Thank you, cotton candy business, and then started serving beverages out of a truck, and really realized that the beverages were really the hit more so than the cotton candy, right? So he's a really thoughtful, kind person, and a really good entrepreneur. And then he turned it into a brick and mortar. But and really what I like about the franchise is that there are a lot of coffee shops, and there are a lot of like boba shops, right? And I looked at a couple of those, but Candy Cloud really offers they're really gorgeous drinks. They're super fun. There's a huge variety of different kinds of beverages. So you can get a coffee, you can get a frappe, you can get a shake, you can customize everything you want. They come in this really neat, I have one right here. They come in this really cool can that has like a soda top can on it, that you can
Oh, neat.
that you when the drink is being prepared, you seal on the soda top.
That's so cool.
So a really unique presentation, and the drinks are just gorgeous. They drizzle down the side, and they have boba in it, and they're colorful, and they're absolutely delicious. And I had the opportunity to go try one when I was traveling for work, and I got four of them, and I said, and I was like, these are all awesome. These are
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much fun. And then, so number one, you want to serve something that you love, right?
Sure.
If
Yeah.
you don't want to go own a business to do something that I don't want
That's a
to.
good tip.
Yeah,
Indeed.
like I don't, you know, I don't love accounting, so I'm not going to start a franchise that's accounting, right? It's
Sure.
not going to help me.
Or
Um,
mufflers.
or mufflers, right? Exactly. I know nothing about mufflers, right? Uh, so it was something that like I really enjoyed, and I was like, this is going to be so much fun. And I also live in a college town, right? So Boulder, Colorado has 50,000 more students right there, and so I really wanted something that was going to appeal to that age demographic, and as I was in this restaurant, in Illinois, in like a kind of a mall, like in the middle of the afternoon, it was like 2 o'clock. All these kids just kept on coming in. They were all young. They were all the right age. They were all Instagram. They were all taking pictures of themselves with the logo. They were all getting these things. It was a constant stream. I'm like, this is a really good business. And the drinks came out fast and they looked great and they tasted fantastic. I'm like, yeah, this is the one for me. This is going to be a lot of fun, especially given the demographics of where I live. I think it's going to be a huge hit with college kids. It's just
When did you hang out your shingle?
what's that?
When did you hang out your shingle? When did you open?
I have not opened my restaurant yet.
You have not yet. Oh, okay.
I
So
have
what?
not yet opened my restaurant. So I'm still actually I'm just negotiating the space right now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we're
So
still
I'm
kind
still
of
at the
in
beginning of
the
my franchise journey.
preparation, but you're getting very close.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
it should
really
be a
exciting.
few months before I open.
Okay. So you won't be able to really share with us the challenges inherent with construction and things like that, but I think a lot of people already kind of understand what that entails. But do you say that there were any other challenges that you had to work through to make your decision? And while you answer that, if you can list maybe the three, four, or five criteria. I mean, you mentioned demographic, you mentioned the neighborhood in which you want to place this store, but what else would you say were some criteria that you considered?
Well, I mean, I considered the health of the business, right? So, like whether the business was going to be a profitable operation, right? So, with every franchise is required to disclose their finances, so you have an understanding of how much you can expect profit wise, how much you can expect revenue wise, right? So that's kind of the first filter. Like, I want to make sure that it's a business that I can make a living at, right? And hopefully open a lot of them. Over time. And then there's the investment piece, like how much it costs to invest and how much time it costs to invest. And then for me, the other part was, I don't think I wanted to set myself up for success. And so I was very cautious about opening a business that was going to be relatively straightforward. And I don't want to say easy because that's the wrong word, but like simple, right? And
Mm.
so one of my questions for Candy Cloud was, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is this business to run? And I don't mean like how much effort you have to put into it, but I mean like how complicated is like all the ingredients and the ordering and stuff like that. And they were like, it's not that complicated. It's like a two, right? He's like, if you were like opening a Chili's or like a TGI Fridays, it would be like, you have dozens of items on the menu. You have all these, you have ovens and stoves and all ducting and all that kind of stuff. He's like, this is a pretty simple business, right? It's just sort of like relatively straightforward. And so that for me was a big appeal, right? Because it could be repeatable and I would, be able to get it up and running as fast as I possibly could,
Yeah.
and so that was that was definitely a really big criteria. And I wanted it to be like fun and taste good and like, be something that I'm going to be excited about and be something that my kids are going to love, and be something that's going to be um, part of the community. I think like is another piece. I love the place I live, and I love my town, and it's a really unique community. It's really terrific, and I really see owning a business with it in Boulder as an opportunity to really sort of like be a part of a deeper part of the community. And so
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about that part. Um,
Absolutely. Any challenges?
yeah, it's all challenging. I think, I think, um, I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is kind of like getting the guts to do it. It's one of those things where, um, it's like been one of those things where, figuring out the finances and, getting the financing in place and figuring out, all the way, the sort of like the way people start a business is that, but really, I think the hardest challenge is getting started and kind of having like the nerve to like be like, you know what, I'm going to make this change. And, making a change while you also have another career is, you know, doubly challenging because I gotta work and work, right. And
Right,
so,
exactly,
um,
exactly. So
yeah,
how long would you say it took you to know that you were ready to go all in?
I was pretty ready. I guess maybe a couple months, maybe a
Okay.
couple months. Um, you know, one of the great things about Rich is that there's never any pressure to go all in. Like I can't say enough wonderful things about him. Like I could talk like all day about how kind he is and how thoughtful he is and how well he guided me through this process. Like how just every piece working with him was absolutely fantastic. And he was like, it's a journey, right? And if you don't want to take the journey, you don't have to take the journey. You're gonna have to make this decision. The decision's gonna kind of present itself to you. You're gonna look at the numbers, you're gonna look at the thing, and you're gonna figure it out. And if you don't want to do it, then you don't do it. And if you do want to do it, you do. And this is what you can expect. And this is why why opting for a franchise versus another kind of business is a little bit different, and this is what you should look for, and these are the things that you want to think about. And we'd have a weekly call and really sort of go through it all, and just like we actually we met in person, which was really lovely. He was like, I've only met one other person I've worked with before, and I happened to be in Illinois, so I went to go see him
Oh,
and we had breakfast.
cool.
And that that was helpful in like getting to the decision.
Hmm.
Um, and then honestly, it's kind of one of those things where you like remember. I think I'll probably when I'm older, elderly. I don't know. When I'm older than the 36 that I look.
Yeah, exactly. You got some time. You still have some time.
um, I'll look back and be like, yeah, that was the moment where, I talked to my friends and my family and they were like, go for it, dude. Like, you have nothing to lose. Like, you know what? You like this, if you don't take this chance, you'll always regret it. And so I think the biggest challenge is just taking the first step and then the final and then the last step to commit to it and realize that your career as you set it up is going to change, and you are putting yourself in a position for a lot of change, and that change is going to be hard and scary and challenging, but also potentially the greatest idea you've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
lot of the soul searching kind of stuff.
right, exactly. But it sounds like Rich, he is this way with all of his clients. He wants to make sure that you're ready to take that next step, and he's there to help shepherd you through step after step because I can only imagine it'd be very daunting. Do you have any advice for those that are wanting to dip their toe in entrepreneurship and owning a franchise, but are just not quite sure yet?
Call Rich.
Yeah.
And I've actually referred a few people to him, because
Oh, good.
he, first of all, his the way his approach is just really, it is just really comforting. It is comforting because you're making big decision. You're kind of, you're talking about hard things, and potentially he's a very thoughtful, kind person. One of the most thoughtful, kind people I've ever met, and definitely one of the most thoughtful, kind people I've ever worked with. And the way he sort of explained how it works and why franchising could be an option versus all the other options. He wasn't shy about saying there's a lot of other options. And then the even before he got to the franchising piece, being like you're not alone. A lot of people my age and in my position who have had success in careers and have gotten to this point, you know, are kind of tired, and they're kind of like looking for something different. And he's like, I made my change when I don't reveal his age, but he was like, I made my change way later in my career, right? And my friend Phil made his change when he was in his 40s. I made my change when I'm in the process of making my change when I'm 50. He's like, that's the time when people do it. It's okay. That's when people make these decisions, and knowing that that's how other people, that's very comforting. That's extraordinary comforting to know that you're like not alone, and that other people who are in your position often feel the same way, right? Like people who are successful in their careers are tired and want to do other things. And like even with all this success, it they have other ambitions. And so you know,
If Grandma Moses could do it, then the rest of us can do it too.
right, exactly, exactly. I mean, and actually, I don't know if you've ever watched that movie about the McDonald's story.
Of course. Yes.
Roy Kroc was in his like 50s when he
That's
did the
true.
whole thing, right? And so it's never too late to start, and it's actually the right time to start because you have a great background. The other thing he says is that even though like, I'm venturing off into a space that's tangential but not the same as my expertise, like you don't ever forget that you have all this wealth of knowledge that you can use for this. And even if it's not exactly the same thing, you are have all this experience and all this success and you understand all this stuff. Like bring that with you, right? You're not walking in as a newborn, you're walking in with all these great experiences behind you, and use that.
Yeah.
And like just he checks in every once in a while. He still checks in, like we still have great conversations. He can't, he's I've referred him to lots of different people. Like I honestly, interestingly, I get a lot of like people reaching out to me, strangers that about opening franchises now
Do
in
you?
like on LinkedIn. I get like,
Yes.
a couple a
Yeah.
day almost.
Wow.
And I don't know. His approach is really different than other people's. And I think if you talk to my friend Phil, who worked with him, he would say the same thing. And if you talk to my other friend who I referred him to, I think he would say the same thing. It's just he's a really special person and really, really, really helpful in
That's
this
wonderful to
business.
hear. That's great. And I'm glad that you brought the LinkedIn because I did want to ask you, we're just about wrapping up here, but for people who are watching this and do have some questions and would like to ask someone, a fellow entrepreneur, franchisee, to have a conversation with you, is there a way that they can connect?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to give him a personal email. That's probably the best way to do it. Did you want me to give it?
Sure, please. Yeah.
Sure. It's Dan Olson, Olson, 1 @gmail.com. And I'm happy to, if anybody wants to reach out and ask me questions about either my story or working with Rich or, how I got into this position. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. It's
Fantastic. That's great. Well, we've appreciated, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us today on the All In series. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you, and you'll be an inspiration for anyone thinking about taking that leap into entrepreneurship with a franchise. So we wish you much success in the next few months. It's going to be very exciting. And we also want to thank all of our viewers and listeners. We hope that you enjoyed meeting Dan Olson and look forward to having you join us again as we explore more stories of those who've decided to go all in. See you next time.